I'd like to thank State Senator Jeff Woodburn for coming. There's Jeff over there. He's a busy man, and we appreciate everything that he does for the state of New Hampshire. Thank you, Jeff. We want to thank everybody for coming. I guess you didn't get invited to the royal wedding, or either you did and you wanted to come here. It was a better program. I got to thank Paul Crane here.
Amen.
And my wife Linda, who is helping us more than she knows.
All right.
Greg Allen, the camera guy here. Greg has been instrumental in helping us out. His daughter made some DVDs over there for last year's induction, and the $10 if you want them. And Greg, come over here. Just come over here in front of the camera. Greg Allen right here.
Thank you, man.
I want to thank Rick Simula, Russ Swinton, Kurt Squire, Shane Beatty, Bob Clark, Greg Westcott, Leon Guile, and Claude Hebert. They've all been instrumental in helping us on this endeavor. I'd like to now recognize last year's class, the 2017 inductees, Mr. Bob Martin, Mr. Bob Clark, his wife Muriel, Bruce Dunham, his wife Mary, and I think Barbara's here somewhere. Bob's wife Barbara's here somewhere. And I would like to recognize and give a warm welcome to the 2018 inductees. And they are Mr. Bruce Borvard, fiancée Mary is with him, Mr. Louis Lunn and his wife Joyce, Mr. Calvin Reynolds and his wife Mary Ann, Mr. Edward Staub and his wife Heidi, and Mr. Kenneth Young. And Ken could not be here for this event, but his son Dirk is standing in his place this weekend, and his son Greg is to his left. I'd also like to thank Herb Yancey for coming to the event. Herb drove a long way. Paul Montang is here. Tom Peters. Who else came? I can't. George Gordon. Where's George? George Gordon came. All of these guys.
Mitch, Mr. Jerry Merrill's here also.
Jerry Merrill.
His wife, Joan.
Yeah, Jerry Merrill. Every one of these guys are pioneers in the sport of snowmobile racing.
How about Tom Peters?
Tom, I mentioned Tom.
You did?
Yeah.
There you go. Too many straight lines.
Tom, if you can find a seat somewhere, you should be sitting down with your back way over there. You okay? And, you know, there was He was Rodco's PR man. And he used to write articles in some of the Snowmobile publications back then. And in a bunch of stuff that Cal brought last year, he had a list of the top 20 New England racers that he considered good enough to race for anybody. Factory teams, they were the top racers what he considered in New England at that time. And they are Cal Reynolds, Paul LaMontagne, Heath Thompson, Keith Lowell, Bruce Bryant, Bruce Dunham, Bob Martin, Fred Felton, Dick Manning, Tom Blackburn, Bob Cully, Harry Clark, Joe Wilkinson, Ronnie Wimett, Tony Consolini, Dave Picard, Alan Ames, Bob Fortin, Dennis Kowaleski, and Don Fowler. Of some of those guys I hadn't heard of before, but many of them I had. I added J.R. Tozier and Conrad Rollins. He did say that these, that everybody's got a top 20, and I had to add J.R. and Conrad. And speaking of Conrad, Vicky couldn't make it today. But Conrad was more than just a top snowmobile racer back then. When we attended his funeral, I stood up and about 3 or 4 other people stood up and we talked, about racing, and we had some racing stories about Conrad. But then one gentleman stood up and he said that he and Conrad used to go riding a lot, trail riding. And I can imagine what it would be like to be trail riding with Conrad around. And this gentleman, every time he'd leave the house, his kids would beg him to take them along. And he finally says, I got courage enough to ask Conrad if it was okay if I took my 2 young kids along with us on one of our rides. And Conrad said, yes, absolutely. And he said, Conrad Rollins made my kids feel like we were on that ride just for them. That's the kind of guy that he was. So just to let you know. This sign up here, I found this sign down, my wife and I went to Lobby. And I came back and I told her, I said, I wish we had bought that sign. But instead I made one up. It says, be so good, they can never forget you. Be so good that they can never forget you. And I have a story here that Rick Simula brought up to me about a week ago. And he wanted to know if I could read this. He said it's for those guys that race the big stuff. And would you read that for me? Because he had prior engagements. He had to, there's a fishing derby down in Winnipesaukee. And they did that every year. And he's got some friends that wanted him to go. So unfortunately he couldn't make it, but he did want this story read. Hang on to that up there while I read this story. It's Rick Simula. My memory of the men who rode the fastest snowmobiles in the world. The time was 1972. I was 17 years old and had been racing a 1972 250 EXT Autocat in A stock at Lewiston, Maine, grabbing second place behind George Plucky Jr. and barely edging out Ray Resnick, who came in third. We had been running in the top 3 points all year, but most racing fans will not remember us because we were racing in the lower horsepower classes. At around 7 p.m., with the Lawston Raceway now under lights, I had my second place money, a bushel full of AC spark plugs, my AC contingency check, and stickers, so we all decided to load our sleds in gear. When the final race of the night was announced, my cousin Gary and I are in the parking lot at the far end of the enclosed grandstand. We would not have been able to get back to the infield on time. The biggest race of the weekend was about to start when Gary looked up at the snowbank between turns 1 and 2 and says, "Let's go." We climbed over the chain link fence, got tangled up in the second snow fence, but finally made it into the darker section, smack dab in the middle of turns 1 and 2. Now both of us, we knew we weren't supposed to be there. Did I mention we were 17? Just then the sharp, high-pitched sound of tune pipes arose from the infield, and out onto the track they came. 10 of New England Snowmobile Racing's greatest stars pulled to the line, and right there in the middle was Cal Reynolds on his big 72 Blizzard. Joe Wilkinson was on a Blizzard to his right. Out of the 10 sleds, 6 or 7 were the wide chassis Skidoo Blizzards. This was the Mod 5 final, the 800s, and the big boys were about ready to put on a show. They bounced up and down a few times to set the studs, but just before Ted Wineout was about to wave the green flag, Cal Reynolds stood straight up on his running board, adjusted his legendary blue scarf, and I swear the man looked 10 feet tall. He towered over the rest. Then Cal settled in, the green flag dropped, and boom! 20 skis lifted off the ground at the same time. 30 alcohol-fueled cylinders roared to life. With each 3-cylinder engine developing 100 horsepower, it created the sound of 1,000 horsepower. And all of it was coming our way fast. It was common knowledge back then that those big 650 and 800cc powered machines never liked to turn. It was akin to trying to turn left with a top fuel funny car at the end of a quarter mile without a parachute. Only now at 10 funny cars trying to turn left and all vying for the same piece of racetrack. But these winter warriors manhandled those monsters through the turns 1 and 2 without incident. They opened them up full throttle and drag raced up the backstretch, barreling into turns 3 and 4, bouncing, flying, thrashing, and clawing their way around, then opening them up again for the front stretch. This went on for 10 very cold, grueling laps. The pungent scent of racing fuel hung in the air like a thick fog. Each time they rolled high into turns 1 and 2, we were peppered with stinging pieces of ice and snow. We'd pull our knit hats down and peer through the stretched yarn as to not miss a single second of the greatest race our young lives had ever witnessed. Now, I raced snowmobiles during the golden age of snowmobile racing, just like those men did, and there were many of us who raced in the smaller horsepower classes, but there are only a handful of drivers who were daring enough, brave enough to compete on those awesome 650s and 800s. So I'd like to finish this story by thanking Calvin Reynolds, Joe Wilkinson, Bruce Dunham, Bob Martin, Conrad Rollins, Louis Lund, and all of those fearless few, the ones who sold the tickets. And yes, the ones who made the kind of memories that will last a boy a lifetime. He was 17 years old. That was over 46 years ago. And he remembers it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
1968 aboard a family skidoo and won first 2 races he entered. He raced until 1977. Won no less than a first, second, or third place finish in all races entered during the entire 1970 season in the 295 class. Won no less than a first, second, or third place finish in all races entered during the entire 1973 USSA season in A and B stock. Won no less than a first, second, or third place finish in all races entered during the entire 1974 USSA season in A and B stock. Was USSA Eastern Point leader in both A and B stock for 1973 and 1974. Raced methanol fueled 1971 Arctic Cat 440 to many victories, including 3 classes at the Manchester Winter Carnival. Won A stock at the USSA World Series in Malone, New York in 1973 and took a 4th place in B stock. He has taken home over 120 trophies in 9 years of racing. Won the Pennsylvania Governor's Cup and the Paul Bunyan's Cup, and Bruce also won the 1975 Kilkenny Cup in Mod 4.
Excuse me. Thanks.
I just wanted to say that I'm honored to be here, and I personally would
Put
like
you
to
on the
thank,
wall now.
I'd like to thank Minch and Paul for all their efforts in implementing the Hall of Fame for the Eastern Division. Thank you.
Mr. Louis Lund. Inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2018. Raced only 1 time in a USSA race in 1970 when he began competing on a big 3-cylinder Polaris 650 Starfire in 1971. Raced in both Mod 4 and Mod 5 on a Mod 4 sled. He wore number 9 and number 10 bibs during his racing career. Won in both Mod 4 and Mod 5 events at Cumberland, Maine on a day that didn't go above 26 below zero. Lewis missed winning in Mod 4 at the 1971 World Series in Boonville, New York by just 2 seconds behind Jim Burnett. First year racing. Was invited to join Team Chaparral as a test pilot, working closely with Bobby Unser on the development of their revolutionary independent front suspension system for 1972. There's not a sled built today that doesn't have an IFS suspension, and that gentleman right there was the first guy to ride one. Lewis was clocked at 115 miles an hour while racing the new IFS-equipped Mod 4 Chaparral at mile-long Scarborough Downs. The track, unable to withstand such speeds, blew apart. He raced his Chaparral to wins in both Mod 4 and Mod 5 at Bangor in 1972. Lewis was well known as one of the most colorful and exciting racers to watch during this bygone era.
Okay, now it's the time for the story, I think.
Tell a story.
Yeah, I think so. If I might. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to say thank you for coming today. A special thanks to my wife, Joyce, twin daughters, Joan and June, my son, Leonard, along with my 8 grandchildren and 2 great-grandkids, Aurora and Andrew, 2 little downs. And also thanks to Paul Gray, and Midge for all they have done. I'll get settled in here in a minute. To promote snowmobiling and for recognizing us snowmobilers. Just want to thank you two so much. It's just, without you doing this, we'd be still in the closet somewhere. I want to thank Bob Clark, our race director, for all his guidance. We really do. And for keeping us on the straight and narrow, or at least trying to. I couldn't forget our great friend and competitor, Conrad Rollins, who passed recently. He also supported anyone who needed help. His shop doors were always open to any team or individual. He was a true professional racer. It was an honor to compete with him, and I know his spirit is with us all.
He's right here today. You can't see him, he's right here.
It's been a privilege to have raced with so many good guys. A special thanks to the 2 competitors, Gerald Merrill and his wife Joni, and Nelson Taylor and his wife Sheila, who raced actually right on the team through my bus and stuff. So right with us all the time. I also want to thank Bill King. I wouldn't have this little. Let me tell you this story. Anyone knew my dad, everything leads to a story. But anyway, I got invited to do the racing, racing for Dick Wilkie, just a little private dealer in Harvard, Mass. And doing mostly drag racing then. And I won a few races, I guess, and had a little bit of good luck. So I got a call from Harrington King, who wanted to know if I would race for, he was a distributor for players, for them through the back by the factory. So they wanted me to come down and meet with them. So, you know, when a guy is young, I guess he gets a little cocky and stuff. Maybe I was. So anyway, you know, the talking told us what they would do and the support I would get and stuff. And I said, when I was walking out the door, I turned around and said, to tell you something, if I race for you, and you're Mr. Bill King, I want to be called Louis the King if I win some races. And that didn't make it. So anyway, so a special thanks to Bill King for, you know, for his support and stuff. I owe a special thanks to all the fans who followed our racing, and there was a lot of them for all the guys that put on the show, and you know, we want to thank them so much. Their support is really appreciated. I also want to say Jim and Alicia, they'll be watching this from a distance, and I missed you today, so I told them I would say that, so they thought they had to be somewhere else. I always felt at home when I came to Lancaster. Anyone who knew Mr. Monahan's shop, the shop was always open to our team. They invited us in.
Oh, God.
So
We made some good friends.
yeah, we thank you. And then a little bit of nostalgia. At a race held in 1971, I won't say where, New Hampshire, I got a little aggressive. I think for the first and only time that I did this. And according to my recollection, I owe an apology to a gentleman. It seems that I bumped Carol Reynolds' sled, and imagine, I still get razzed about it whenever we meet. It was all in fun, really. Joe was a great competitor, seriously. Added a lot to the sport, and he's a class act. Stand up, Calvin. You can see why I admitted to it. This is the first time I admitted to it. When you see, well, see, you see where he is. I always shied away from it. I didn't know he was as good a sport as he is. He took it all in fun. Great guy.
It's just racing.
In closing, I'm very honored to be inducted into the Snowmobile Hall of Fame, and it is a privilege. Thank you all for the great friendships and memories. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you all for your time.
Nate, take the whole bouquet out.
Sorry, I don't know.
Point well taken. Oh, I get one. Give it to Marilyn.
What's that?
Mr. Calvin Reynolds. Inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2018. His very first race was at the 1964 Lancaster Grand Prix. Cal raced for his family's dealership team, Reynolds Raiders. He had won over 100 first, second, and third place trophies in only the first 6 years of racing. Cal raced to a second place finish against top factory riders in Mod 5 at the first USSA World Series in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. He wore gold bibs number 3, 4, and 5 during his racing career. Winning nearly every major New England championship, Cal raced to a hard-fought second place finish in Mod 4 against several top factory teams at the 1971 Lancaster Grand Prix. I'm going to come back to that one. Was voted in the top 12 best driver and best sportsman both in the same year, covering all 3 divisions by the prestigious USSA race committee members, best driver and best sportsman. His Reynolds Raiders team is best remembered for competing on such impeccably prepared machines. It helped to elevate the entire sport of New England snowmobile racing to a higher level. This is the best photo. Cal, let me tell you something about Cal Reynolds. Cal came in with a file box full of memories. And for every memory he had of himself, there were 3 or 4 memories of his friends and competitors like Conrad and Bruce Dunham. I had a hard time finding stuff on Cal. And the best photo that we could come up with in all that stuff, and one that I wanted because it said Reynolds Raiders, is the only one that said Reynolds Raiders on his jacket. And unfortunately, it came out of an old newspaper clipping, and my wife brilliantly, it was a yellowed newspaper clipping. So she did a very good job with that. If Cal wants to come up with a better photo, put it in. But I tell you, this is what we saw. Every Monday morning newspaper, this is what we saw. So, and I want to go back to the part where he won second place at the 1971 Grand Prix. I'll tell you who won it. It was another Mainer. His name was Conrad Rollins. Now, I can tell Bob Martin can tell you just how bad the 71 blizzards were.
Yep.
The 71 blizzard had a 27-inch ski stance. And the 3-cylinder engines were wider than the ski stance. Not only that, the engine sat up on top of the tunnel. It was top heavy, it was narrow, and honestly, Cal was competing against most of the major factory teams at that Grand Prix. And to come in second on that sled says a lot about his driving ability. Because Polaris clearly had a better sled that year. They had a 34.5-inch ski stance. The engine sat low down in the tunnel. And Cal did very well to come in second place.
Am I supposed to give a speech?
You can. Look at him.
Well, I guess the first thing I want to do is, number one, that cost me $1,000 to get that picture in the paper. I want to thank you for all the effort you're putting into this, and I don't know who else would do it, and we really, really appreciate it. And Paul, I don't know, to make this facility available for us, we just can't thank you enough. I don't want to get emotional about it, but I can't help it. I've been following Louis.
Yeah.
But, my claim to fame really is that I've been whipped by every top driver in this room, which means every one of them. And they're all top drivers. Any given weekend, you can get your butt whipped. And because there was a lot of good riders back then. If they had everything going in the right direction. I remember one time at Bangor, and I went down there and I said, Louis didn't show up. I got it made. This guy come out of Aroostook County on a skidoo. He's standing over there at Tom Peters. And he gave me the race of my life. I rode the Bankins. I rode Timberland's machine because Bobby Barton got hurt. And I rode the Bankin, and Tom rode the inside rail. And And I'm telling you, every time I come off that bank, I'd be in the middle of it, I'd look down like that, and make a little palm, and I'd just try. I gotta be going a lot faster than him, and I'd just come off those bank and hit the ground, up the backstretch, I'd going into the corner, and up on the bank, and again, I look down, there's Tom. And if everybody remembers the movie, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kids, when they had the Rangers chasing them, they said, who is that guy? Who is that guy? Who is that guy? I kept looking at Tom, who is that guy? But anyway, it was a great ride. I had a lot of fun. The best part of it is when you pull in the pits and the camaraderie. The camaraderie, that's what it's at, between Bruce, Louie, all the boys, especially that one over there that used to make a boom all the time. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. The camaraderie was, we spend all day with each other, all day long, every race weekend.
We have a band of brothers.
But I couldn't have ever done it without my beautiful wife, 59 years. She's imported. Imported from Germany when she was only 18 years old. And there's my pit man over there, Steve Reynolds. When he was 10 years old, he was my #1 pit man.
Steve.
And the lovely girlfriend, Melissa. So anyway, thanks everybody for coming up, and I thanks for all the accolades and all the back slaps on the back and everything. It means a lot to me, and I'll treasure this forever. Thank you.
It's a great talent.
Now you're going on the wall, pal.
Edward Stabb, racer promoter, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2018. In 1968, 12-year-old Ed Stabb begged Agway owner and Skidoo dealer Fay Calvin to please let him help work on the machines. He was so convincing, Calvin let him. In 1971, Ed joined the Explorer Post 505, whose sponsor was the USSA. His troops sold food and many of the USSA sanctioned races. Ed began racing snowmobiles in 1974 on the 1974 Polaris 340, and again in 1975. He co-owned the 1976 Mercury 250 Snow Twister and helped sponsor a lighter rider to drive it, and it took many first-place trophies that year. Ed began grooming trails and repairing rental sleds for the Northwest Passage Hotel. It was here that he rented the workshop, calling it the Outpost, started selling used snowmobiles, and was a Parts Unlimited dealer until 1981. In 1979, Ed built his first racetrack at the Northwest Passage Hotel. He was not only involved in putting the race on, he also raced to second place finish. He saw the first New York Vintage Sled race in 2002, was a member of the board in 2003, took over as chairman of the New York Vintage Sled Racing from 2004 to 2015. Under Ed's leadership, over racing enjoyed a resurgence in interest not seen since the 1970s. Ed ran 8 100-mile endurance races on several New York lakes for 7 years. Ed Stabb was named Grand Marshal for the 2011 Boonville Snow Festival. He hosted his first vintage snow at Boonville, New York in 2005 with 176 entries. Ed was host of the first national show at Boonville in 2010 with 254 entries. He was a judge at the national show at St. Anne's, Michigan in 2012. He hosted the second national show at Boonville, New York with almost 500 entries. Was a judge at Midland, Michigan National Show in 2015. Ed helped at the national show in Lancaster, New Hampshire in 2016. Ed was key in the enormous success of the 2014 50th Lancaster Grand Prix reunion race. He brought his entire staff, all working pro bono for this and every Grand Prix since. Mr.
I'm going to keep it short. It's been a pleasure to come up here to New Hampshire to put on the races that we do. The credit that you guys are giving me is very nice, but you know, when you run an organization like we have, it's not just me. It's my helpers, my track directors, all the guys that come and help me put on these races. Without them, you can't do it. I mean, the 100-mile races, I had to have somebody go out and build those tracks. You had to have somebody sitting out there all day, making sure guys didn't cut corners, you know. That's a long day of sitting there. You can't do it without help, and you gotta have good help. The flagmen to stay out there all day and flag the races and stuff. The girls to sit out there and score the racers. They sit out in the cold and watch those guys. If it's 30 below, that's where they're sitting, you know. So, like I say, I'm honored to have this, but I want everybody to know that it takes a lot of people to run something like this and keep it going. And Mitch, Paul, the only thing I can say about Paul, he has a good shirt.
Every spoke wheel needs a hub. Kenneth Young, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2018. Ken raced for the famous Widowmakers racing team. Raced Skidoo during the 1968-69 season, winning 7 first-place titles at 5 events entered, taking second in points. He switched to Arctic Cat in 1969, earned his first gold bib #1, and went on to win first place in Mod 4 at the first World Series at Rhinelander, Wisconsin in 1970. Ken won 4 first place and 3 second place trophies in 7 events entered, and took a 4th place in Mod 2 at the 1971 World Series in Boonville, New York. Kenny never lost a race he entered in Mod 1, Mod 2, and Mod 3 during the entire 1971-72 season, taking 10 first place wins. He also won in Mod 1 at the 1972 World Series in Ironwood, Michigan. He won all 3 races he entered in the 1972-73 season, including the New York State Championship. At Redfield, New York, on the first lap in the first race of the 1973-74 season, Ken was injured in a bad crash in turn 3. He retired on the spot. What a record. This is Kenny's son right here. Kenny couldn't make it, and Dirk is accepting it in his honor.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everybody for showing up, and thank Midge for dogging us, finding us, and Dad's alive and knows I'm here, and he'll appreciate this very much. So for me and my family, thank you very much.
Listen, if you guys would like to help out with this, we'll accept any donations. One way to do that is buy a t-shirt. My wife is selling t-shirts and hats and stuff over there. We got a raffle going. We're giving away a couple of sweatshirts, $1 a ticket. We really need help in that way, and anything that you can do for us is definitely a plus. You wanted to...
Yep.
You may have seen these signs around. I'm Mike with Vintage Snowmobile Lovers, by the way. VintageSnowmobileLovers.com. I'm putting on a show and swap in Derby Line, Vermont on August 11th. If any of you guys want to come by, I'd love to see you. If you want information about it, I've got these business cards.
happy to give you one. It's got my web address on it. And lastly, you guys may be familiar with me if you're not already. I host the largest vintage snowmobile themed page on Facebook, Vintage Snowmobile Lovers. It's the largest community of vintage snowmobile lovers anywhere, Facebook or otherwise. If you have a chance, jump on and join in the fun. It's a very active page. But August 11th, River Line, Vermont, Vintage Show and Swap.
Thank you. Yeah, Bruce wants to say something about Mr. Reynolds.
I race cap, but he raced Skidoo. I'm gonna read this just so I don't get it mixed up, but, I'd like to thank Cal for helping me get my sled on the track for the A-Stock final in 1973 World Series. The race directors decided that they would run the final on late Saturday afternoon for A-Stock instead of on Sunday. I wasn't anywhere to be found. Well, Cal Reynolds, along with 3 others, got my sled from the muddy infield to the starting line and said, get on it and go out and race. When the flag dropped, I had no idea I was in the final. If it wasn't for those 4 gentlemen, I wouldn't have won the A-Stock at the World Series in 1973. Thank you, Cal.
That concludes this year's program. And I think you guys have any questions for these gentlemen? Now's the time to do it. They have just a wealth of information about that era, and we're glad to have them. Thank you. Paul said to stay tuned on Train Snowmobile Museum website, and we'll have a date for next year at some point. So, yeah. And I already know who's going to be inducted next year. If you'd like to know, I guess I can tell you right now. Ron Hall, Mr. Herb Yancey, Claude Hebert.
Forgot already.
JR told you. JR may be here. He said he was going to try to. There's JR. You made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go away.
How much of this?
I was always like those guys.
How much of this did you see?
All of them.
Not all of it.
Yeah. I can go in the rest.
Yeah, Mr. Tozier. And even 2020, Tom Peters is slated to be inducted in 2020, and along with a couple, 3 others that I got my sights set on. So it's going to happen, and these guys need to be recognized. So thank you very much.
We want Can you squeeze in as much as you can? That's great.
All right, my name is Calvin Reynolds, and I'm one of the early snowmobile racers in this area, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Raced all the way to Wisconsin, the World Series out there, raced in Ironwood, Michigan, raced in Pennsylvania. Started out with just single cylinder, 5 horsepower machines, and worked my way up to 640s and 800s. And my claim to fame, I guess, is I was beat by just about everybody in the business. I've been beat by the best, but I also won a few. So it was a great experience, and the camaraderie and the adventure and the time. Everything was the right time, the right place, the right time, and we were kind of pioneers back then. And every weekend was a blast, all went along. And I wouldn't take anything from the memories.
Hi, I'm Louis Lunn. I've started racing snowmobiles in the late 60s through 73. Started racing for Polaris, small dealership in Harvard, Mass, and doing mostly drag racing. Got me into it, and got invited to go race full sleds on the circuit, and that we did. Had a great time at it. Had some success.
Nice.
And, made a lot of good relationships. Felt very, very fortunate in my racing career. I only got off the sleds 2 different times in the 5 years that I raced, and one time at Wolfboro, New Hampshire, the sled had upset, and I couldn't clear it, and hit that, and got a little bit of a concussion, but
Oh.
I don't know if it still lasted today or not. I think,
Yeah.
I think I'm over it. It was probably, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I'm
That rang your bell pretty good, did it?
Yeah, it wasn't terribly bad, but enough that I didn't know right where I was or why I was there for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So, other than that, it's been very good. Had some really great people, great mechanic because we had good success with I race only 650s in the 2 classes. I raced my 650 in the 800 class, and fortunately had good success there. My mechanic was very sharp and good. He got everything that was in the sled.
Nice.
So
We were able to put it all on the track.
put it all on the track, and so that was good. We had great with Chaparral. I went from Polaris to Chaparral because of distributor changing. It wasn't anything to do with Polaris or the sleds, but the
Sure.
distributor had changed, and they wanted me to go to Metalka in New York. Stay with Polaris, but it would have been all down around New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and that. And just, at the time, I'm 77 and I'm still in my own business. I'm still working.
Wow, good.
So, it would have been too much traveling for me. So, I was invited to stay with the distributor in Chaparral, and it was a great experience. Got out west, got to see some different things. We done some testing for them on the new IFS independent front suspension sleds, and Bobby Unser, the open wheel racer, which the picture showed. I got a personal chance to meet with him and chat with him, and so for I guess a young whippersnapper,
Yeah.
it was pretty fortunate, I thought.
Nice.
And made some good relationships there. We had a close relationship with the Nickerson, Gary Nickerson, who run the New York division for Chaparral Racing, and had a good friendship and stuff, working back and forth with them, passing information and things. So, other than that, a lot of, just the second thing that happened to me on the track, it was I think it was Newport, Vermont, we were racing, and I had just, the Chaparral, it was early in the season, it might have been second or third race on the Chaparral, and we had done some qualifying, and I don't know if we was in a qualifying run or a final, but I come out of the second turn, and on my left eye, I noticed something moving like this. I looked down, and my ski was broadside. It wasn't forward, it was broadside.
It flipped around.
And I was coming out of the turn with full power on, so my skis were off the ground, fortunately. So I knew what was going to happen. And so what I did was I stood up, let off of the throttle, and jumped at the same time.
Wow.
I cleared the sled pitch poled end over end, I don't know how many times, and I never went off my feet. I landed on my feet, and they said I was doing steps at about 25 feet each,
Yeah.
and about probably 40, 50 miles an hour when I lit on the track.
Good God.
So it got a rise out of the crowd.
That would be something to see.
It was. Everyone said it was kind of a comical act in a way, but yet, so I was, like I said, as far as being on the track with accidents and that, was very, very close. And then the only other bump I had, which I mentioned before, was the Cal Reynolds and I, and
That was a good story.
I give him quite a bump. I guess I was probably about as aggressive as a guy could be.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're going to win, you can't sit back and think about it. You got to get up front and get it done.
Yeah, you don't go there to lose, right?
No. We didn't go to lose. But knowing at the time, we were having a great time doing it, and never thought anything about a Hall of Fame or being your name on the wall of the museum or something.
Sure.
I just thought we'd doing that someday, be all done of it. And I might look at back at some of my old things. I never thought that we would have this happen.
Yeah, it's wonderful that it's still kept alive.
It really is. Midge and Paul, just what they're doing here, and others.
Sure.
The Stop Yourself and all that, bringing back. And I think the snowmobilers and even people that might not be much in snowmobiling kind of say, gosh, that'd probably half interesting,
Yeah.
And so probably there were some interesting characters
Sure.
involved in it. So
Yeah.
other than that, I guess that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Sticking to it. Nice.
All right.
Oh, one final thought. Do you have any memories or thoughts about those early IFS sleds? You were the one that tested some of those first
Well,
iterations of that, right?
Yeah. They were so much quicker. That the suspension, the independent suspension, I had it the first year before anyone else had it, and not. I don't know if you want to brag about it or not, but I guess I've heard it said that if it happened and you can do it, you're not bragging about it.
Sure.
But I had seen some movies that were taken, when we were racing, and like when I had that IFS, the Chaparral, the race would start and we come out of the second turn and round the corner, and I'd be halfway down the back stretch, and they're just coming out. And if you had like a quarter or half mile track, within 3 to 5 laps, I'd be lapping everybody. The sled was just tremendous. And
Must corner 100% better, I would think.
Oh God, I never hardly had to let off the throttle.
So even then, with the first early experiments with that suspension, you knew that was the future of snowmobiling?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely was, and they all went to it, so it wasn't a mistake, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it was a way that every factory, followed suit there.
Sure.
Somewhat.
And I imagine the whole industry took notice of that when they started coming out with the IFS sleds.
Oh yeah, I absolutely did.
They knew everyone knew that was the future.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good.
Very, very, very much so.
Good. Well, thank you, Louis. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Tom Peters, from Presque Isle, Maine, now born and brought up in Stockholm, Maine. Raced from the mid-60s, 66 actually, through 76. Raced basically Bombardier, Skidoo, Blizzards, owned 5 different models of them, and primarily in the 650 class, 640 and 650 class. Raced a lot of, didn't race down here with the big guys a lot. Raced, if there was local races, we used to try to hit them because made a lot of travel from Worcester County down. But I did race in Scarborough, Lewiston, Bangor quite a few times, so did cover the whole state. Never did come into New Hampshire to race. It was just too far back in the day. But
sure.
I was telling some of the guys there today, the guys that were there, I said, we got up in the morning, Monday morning, and we looked at our we looked at the newspaper or looked at the race results for the weekend, and there was your name. You know, if you were fortunate enough to win, there was your name. But I said, you know, that didn't happen in a bubble.
Right.
There was all kinds of people behind the scenes that made that happen. But
Sure.
I get race results and stuff in here, and you go down through those race results, those people's names aren't there. You know, our names are there, but
Sure.
you know, it wasn't a one-man deal. You know, it was
A lot of people made that happen.
a lot of people to make it happen. It was quite a thing. So I really, in one of the memorable events, and Cal Reynolds and I talked about it today. We raced in Bangor, 1970. I pulled into Bangor with a car with a homemade trailer with a 1970 Blizzard on the back end of it.
Wow.
And here's all these tractor trailers and
Factory
all these
teams.
race factory teams out there. And I told the guy that I was with, I said, that owned the Skidoo dealership. I said, I can't race here. He said, what are you talking about? I said, look at what they got. I said, here I am with a homemade trailer and a sled on it. And I said, you expect me to go out and compete against that? And he said, look, young man, he said, you put your pants on one leg at a time just like they do. He said, you go out there, and he said, you can beat them all. So I went out on Saturday, did not qualify. So Sunday they had a consolation race. And I won that consolation race by, we found some traction equipment overnight.
Yeah.
And worked till about 1 o'clock in the morning to get it on there. So I won the first heat. There was 3 heats, qualifying heats, and I won every one of them by about a quarter of a lap.
Really?
So everybody was watching then. This guy didn't qualify yesterday, and so I get into the final. Cal Reynolds was in the final.
Yeah.
And I pushed him quite hard. He beat me by about half a ski length.
Wow.
And he was telling me today, he said that they threw that chassis away 'cause he couldn't ride on the track. I rode the rail. And he was trying to ride on the bank. He said they had to throw that chassis away. He said there wasn't a rivet that was left tight in it.
They loosened it all up.
Loosened it all up. He said, I pounded it so hard. He said, and I don't know if you heard him say today, he was up on the bank, he looked down, and there was Tom Peters sitting on the inside rail. So it was that's one of the real good memories, you know.
Yeah.
Racing against people like that. So
That's awesome.
but it's been it was a wonderful ride, you know. But you know, 50 years later, there's a lot of good memories.
Yeah, it's nice that it's still remembered today too.
Yep.
That means a lot. Yeah.
And they're gonna. I've talked to Midge there, and they're gonna put me in the 2020
Good.
category here. So
Good.
which is great.
Good. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
All right, my name is Paul LaMontagne, and I'm down here for this wonderful event. I'm going to tell you right now, these guys that just got the award, being inducted into the Hall of Fame, really, really deserve it. It's amazing, and it's nice to see them again. And everybody just, you know, all the old memories come back. What you've done, who you were with. You can even pinpoint a time, a certain lap, and we got talking about things. It's fantastic. And I was very fortunate to race from 1969 to 75, and with different teams and different sleds, and started with Rupp and went on to Chaparrals, and after that finally finished racing with Mercury out of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and with Snow Twisters, and just had a great time and meeting great people, and I'm glad that this vintage racing is coming back, because I'll tell you right now, there was people, the young people just will never have the opportunity to do and see what we did. And by doing this, it gives everybody a chance. Even if you pick up an old machine and get on it and have a good time and good laughs, there's really nothing like it. So I appreciate everything that's been done, and people the way they treated me, and the best everybody.
Nice. Any favorite memories of racing back in the day, back in the 70s?
Oh my God, there was some, like I was racing against Gilles Villeneuve up in Bangor, and he had me by about a half a lap, and it took me 10 laps, and I caught him on the last corner to win the modified class. And to that day, him and I were friends. We were together. I also raced against him in Boonville, New York. I also raced against him at Eagle River, where him and I fought for first and second, and he ended up, I got him in Bangor, and he got me, and it was just fun things like this that happened. It's just amazing. And also the guys like Brad Hullins, who went on to race for Polaris, him and we bumped heads for a whole winter on our Mercury snow twisters, and we had so much fun just beating up on each other, really, and it's things that we'll never forget. You know what I
Wonderful.
mean? But I want to thank you for interviewing me, and I hope you people get into the sport. And as I'm 69 years old, listen to this, I still ride
Still
every
ride.
weekend.
Nice.
For the last 22 years, I'm to be found in Jackman, Maine, or up in Canada, and just having a ball riding. Right now, what I do now, I got rid of all the fast sleds in 2012, and now I got myself a nice, beautiful touring 1200 Skidoo, and
Nice.
a tour around with my fiance, and we're all over the place, and we just have a ball. We just have a ball. So there's no end. I mean, you can be 85 and still out there running and having a great time, and every weekend when we pull into Jackman, everybody looks forward to seeing each other, and I'm with friends like Wilkinson out there that I used to race years ago, and we just have a ball every weekend. So life's too short. We got to enjoy every minute.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you very, very much.